Hello, everyone, and welcome to the CBAM workshop on how to file a CBAM report. Yes, CBAM this, CBAM that. It's the carbon border adjustment mechanism of the European Union. Are you excited? I am excited. And wouldn't we like a bit of red tape? Don't we love a bit of admin? Yeah, why? Because we don't have so much time in our life. So we want to do more admin and red tape and do reports? Yes. CBAM, some people call it the ultimate demonstration of red tape and administrative burden. Does it have a noble cause? Of course it has. Is there a different way to do it? Probably. Regardless of your opinion, this workshop is a 4-hour run-through of how to file a CBAM report correctly. It is not a beginner's training. It is when you know what CBAM is and you are now ready to be serious about submitting a CBAM report, then we're talking. So let's have a closer look at what we want to do here. I've just moved up over here so you can see the slide. So welcome to the workshop of filing the CBAM report. Okay, so we got to figure out what that is all about. So let me click and tell you what this workshop's about. The Lodging a Successful CBAM Report is a 4-hour public workshop in which participants learn how to file a CBAM report with the European Commission in the appropriate registry. The objectives of this workshop are multiple. We want to do everything. We only have 4 hours. Wow. So with this workshop, we're going to understand the CBAM filing requirements. We're going to learn the necessary steps for filing this CBAM report. Then we're going to understand, obviously, we need to understand the structure of the report. We need to get, how we organize it, what's the order, what goes first, what goes second, what's logical in creating the report. Should we first fill out this or should we first fill out that? So we're going to talk about it from a very practical point of view. From those that file it today, top tips to you that might want to file it. The timeline for filing CBAM reports, that's not really so unknown, but there are complications, right? Because timelines and deadlines are set in stone, but then they're not, because and then you have an extension and you can have a delay and you can request this and request that. So we're going to look at what all of that is and when the deadlines are and what to do if you can't meet that deadline. We also need to finally understand who needs to file. There are so many people floating around that say, me, I want to file. Or no, not me, go away. I never want to touch this. I work in customs. I don't file CBAM. CBAM is for environmental people. No. I am an environmental specialist. I'm not a customs guy. I don't file CBAM reports. Whichever way you want it, it's a confusion. And then there are agents in the mix as well who are acting as direct and indirect representatives or agents, and they want to know what they need to do. So we're going to figure this out. What CBAM goods are affected? Well, of course, it is pretty straightforward if you know CBAM, where to find your CBAM goods. Okay, but then it's not as straightforward because not every CBAM good is not for every CBAM good it is possible to determine the emissions, because a CBAM good may have been produced 50 years ago and is now imported into the EU. So by that time, not only is the emission long gone, maybe the factory that produced it is no longer there. Even the people that produced it might not be on this earth anymore. So what are we talking about? Why should we and how should we declare emissions on CBAM goods? Then there are other types of goods, not defined by commodity code, but defined by circumstance. Returned goods. What about those? Semi-manufactured goods, finished goods, CBAM goods incorporated into other goods, and then these other goods sent to us. So lots of questions, lots of unsure elements. I'm going to talk about that. There's more we need to understand. How to get emission details. Yeah, so we are not going to talk about how we calculate the emissions in this part. That's the other workshop. But we need to understand what we need to be asking for. What about the emissions and what do we need to ask for and in what format? And in order to understand that, we need to know what the filing report should look like. Because if you don't understand what and in what format and in what type and what factors you need to report, then you will ask the wrong questions. Availability CBAM filing report guidance. Obviously, that is what we're doing here. We are walking step by step through on how to do it. Ways to file. We're gonna also look at where to get the data from. We're gonna look at what you do when you don't have that data and you need a bit of alternatives and fancy ideas, interesting ideas to get to submit a report, but you're lacking a bit of data. There's a problem here. So this is the part we talk about default values and the future of default values after default values have been reduced to 20%. So I will not repeat this again. The objectives of this workshop, you can see it's a walkthrough of completing a CBAM report, compliance considerations, how to amend a CBAM report, what to do when things goes wrong, and of course, we will have an interactive Q&A where you can always ask questions. And as such, the learning topics that we're going to cover are detailed understanding of CBAM reporting requirements, in-depth overview of CBAM reporting structures, comprehensive timeline of filing CBAM reports, identifying of filing entities, information on affected CBAM goods, techniques for obtaining emission details, and then resources and guidance for CBAM filing to enable you to do it, the methods of filing CBAM reports, data sourcing tips, handling provisional data, step-by-step completion guide, compliance considerations, amending reports, and troubleshooting advice. And if we manage to do all of this in 4 hours, then that's what you're going to get. You're going to gain a thorough understanding of the steps and criteria for accurate CBAM filing, learn to effectively organize and present the critical components of CBAM reports, of a CBAM report, understand essential deadlines for filing CBAM reports to ensure timely emissions, and you will gain, that's what we just said, you'll identify which entities are required to file CBAM reports for proper compliance, receive guidance on identifying goods subject to CBAM, acquire methods of gathering necessary emission details for precise reporting, access tools and resources to assist throughout the CBAM filing process, and learn the strategies for handling provisional data and transitioning to accurate CO2 emissions reporting. And of course, develop practical advice and strategies to address and resolve issues during the CBAM reporting process. And as I've said before, as I may have mentioned before, this is one part, the last part of a 3-part series. The first one is setting the foundation, setting the essentials. That's a 4-hour training, which exists live and on demand, where you can learn about the essentials. What is CBAM? Why is CBAM? How is CBAM? Etc. The next part is your communication workshop with suppliers. You, at some point, need to go out to your customers, your clients, to your suppliers, and talk to them. But you might not be an expert on CBAM. So what are you going to communicate? How are you going to communicate? What do you want from them? And by when and how? So this is a toolkit of how to communicate effectively. Basically, you get the tools, the templates, and the cheat sheets in order to start communicating. Just replace our draft with your version and put that on your letterhead, and boom, you go. So we're going to talk about how that all works. And then, so this is more towards your customers, suppliers, clients. And this one is towards the authorities. So this one's about what do you need to submit. Yeah, good. And with that said, I should show you what the agenda looks like. So the agenda is like that. It's pretty straightforward, actually, but it will cover everything we said. We're going to do a quick refresher of CBAM. And that's a really quick one because we're assuming that you know what CBAM is here. We're also going to do an introduction to the CBAM transitional registry now, creating, and then that is our key space where we will operate. And we will then create a CBAM report. We'll look at operator installations, emissions, etc. We'll then file the CBAM report. We'll look at the format. How do we can we file it? How can we submit it? How can we edit it and validate it, download it, etc., etc. And that then rounds up our training, our workshop, and you will be able to do it yourself, hopefully. So if that is a good agenda and that is a good learning objective and good outcomes, then why don't we get started? So, oh yeah, there's one more thing, and that is the disclaimer. Your existing knowledge on CBAM is assumed, presumed, I guess, and highly valued. So this will be a conversation we're gonna have together. I'm gonna ask you questions, you're gonna share your experience, and I'm gonna share mine. We'll not be able to explain all the essential details, reasons for CBAM, legislation, sectors covered, definition of key terms, stage of implementation, how CBAM works, etc. We'll also not be able to explain how to monitor CO2 emissions in installations of third country operators, and we will not consider the Excel reporting template broadly. For this, we have the second workshop. We will cover these in, as I said, in the other workshops and trainings. Okay, that's enough for the introduction. I think you've been talked out. I think we are ready to go. So if you're ready to start with the whole thing, let's get straight into it. Let's go. CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism workshop. Refresher on CBAM is the first thing. Let's go.